There, okay, it's blue, okay.
pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sam, would you care to lead some prayer, please?
Yes, sir. Our Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning once again to give you honor and glory and praise. We thank you for your love and mercy and grace that you may know. Lord, watch over us all. Guide us and strengthen us, Lord. Help us to come together as a community, as a county, to resolve the issues that are at hand. Bless each and every one that's here. Watch over all the first responders and keep them safe. Forgive us of our sins and shortcomings. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. We do have a full quorum this morning. All three commissioners are present. If you have not signed up on the sign-in sheet, please do so. We've got quite a bit of stuff on the agenda this morning, so we're going to try to get through this in a timely manner. Other than the public hearings, public comment is not available on morning meetings. So with that being said, let's move forward to the approval of minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve minutes for February 21st, 2022?
I make that motion, we approve the minutes. I'll second it.
I have a motion by Bob, second by Dale. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next, in the matter of claims, I have one concern with claims this morning. Page 4 on the claims docket, Madam Auditor, in 1169 Local Road and Street, there is an AT&T mobility bill for $5,947.86 that should not be there. And I could not find any documentation to support that amount as well. So at this time, we'll pull that from the claims docket, figure that problem out. Does anybody else have any other questions on claims? And before we approve those, I'll go ahead and have Jim talk again on our financials.
Commissioners, again, as we begin March, all of your major operating funds in Owen County are all have positive balances. The general fund has, as of the 28th, has a balance of $829,072.09. This is now December, January, February, and March, where the general fund has maintained a positive balance. Barring just a complete unexpected or catastrophic event, the general fund is going to remain positive in March. So even though we're only in just the first week, we still have 2 payrolls and we still have 2 claims. But that balance is maintaining better than projected amounts. So we're looking at the first quarter and positive balance there. All of your others do have every claim fund that you're doing, about the line items on the fund. You have positive balances in each and every one of those. But there's one exception, is the 9167 Hazard Mitigation Grant. That is a reimbursable grant. The balance in that grant right now is a negative $9,923.07. You do have a claim in there. That negative balance will expand to $11,246.15. Again, it's a permissible claim, it's a reimbursement, but it is kind of one of those grants where I would suggest keeping an eye on it until April to make sure that reimbursement is coming in.
Jim, do we know the amount of that grant?
I was thinking in the range of 40,000, but that's from my memory.
Okay.
But I could be completely wrong on that, but it was definitely more than what's been put into the claims. The March, the February, there was also some things that were different about February. First of all, in the general fund, for the first time in a long time, not including your settlement months, the expenditures in February were less than the receipts. It was in the range of about $4,800. So actually, money went into the bank from the general fund. Again, outside of the 2 settlement months, I think that's the first time in about 3 years. The overall funds, which is totally expected to spend more than the receipts because it's a non-settlement, but that was just slightly over 20,000. That's also a much smaller number than the past. and the total amassed funds are still $10 million for Owen County. If you go from a year to year, this is quite a difference as we were talking here about February of 2021. This is actually very good news in the county and the right trends that you would have. So there's no issue as far as funds for the claims is coming in. I think there's a few things to look in the future that I would say, because there's a lot of positive news here, but inflation is at historical highs coming in today. It's my understanding that the gas prices are in the average of about $4 a gallon. I think that's about 10 to 15 cents higher than any time in history. So when we're dealing with historical inflation, I would, in the departments probably that you work with regularly, highway, EMS, and sheriff's department, as far as fuel, if these rates continue, that's going to be quite a challenge for them. Also for the sheriff's budget in the area of food and staples. Obviously, the same type of double-digit inflation is going in there. In the 1170 for the sheriff's budget, there's only a $60,000 difference between the total amount coming in, which we know exactly what that's going to be, and the appropriated amount. So in respect to that fund, that only has about a $60,000 leeway for this type of inflation. The same thing with concern with the highway. The highway numbers have been good, averaging between about 131 to 129 per fund. That's slightly higher than last year, but these gains are completely erased by the inflation as far as building cost, material cost, and for fuel. So, not trying to borrow trouble, but looking at here, good trends, better than projections, better numbers, but a lot of things either here present or on the horizon as far as inflation, really kind of watching over these numbers.
Thank you, Jim, and yes, you're correct with saying that. Every department, I know highway, sheriff department, EMS, they are affected the most by rising costs with fuel, supplies, food, pipes, so on and so forth. But every department in the county is going to be affected by this, from pencil to paper, right on through. I made this comment before the year started that the budgets that have been set in stone, you can just about reduce them by 15%, and that's what we're going to be dealing with this year. It's unfortunate, but it's reality. So again, you've been asked to pinch your pennies in your departments, and we're going to ask you to pinch them some more, because there's just not enough reserve to come back and ask for help. So with that being said, and the one amendment, go ahead, Sheila.
It's not AT&T, it's Lincoln Park.
Okay.
It's still 1169 fund, so the 233, 279.61 is the correct amount. It just needs to be changed to Lincoln Park, not AT&T.
Okay, and you have the invoice to verify that there in
Yes.
the, okay. Because I definitely couldn't find an AT&T anywhere in there. So with that being said, sounds like we've got that corrected. You good with that, Greg?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
I did call Greg over the weekend and question him about it, trying to figure out what we were doing, so that all makes sense. Do I hear a motion to approve claims with the adjustment by the auditor?
I make a motion we approve claim with adjustment by the auditor.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Bob, a second by Dale. All in favor? Aye. Let's see here, Sheila. Bear with me here while I get these separated. I also have payroll for approval for 25th of February for amount of $222,627.93. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make that.
I have a motion by Dale. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Bob. All in favor? Aye. And let's see. We have out-of-cycle claims, utilities, $2,450.45. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Make a motion we approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Bob, second by Dale. All in favor? Aye. Appreciate everybody bearing with us here. COVID clinic, $5,200. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Make a motion we approve the COVID clinic.
Have a motion by Bob,
I'll second it.
have a second by Dale. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And I think this was the last one. And February 22nd, utilities, $36,416.69. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Make a motion we approve those also.
I have a motion by Bob. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Dale. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Cool.
All right. Dusty, I'm gonna bump you up here real quick. So you don't have to sit here. Perfect. For an hour, get you back to work. We had a contract with Oral Corporation, was presented to us at our last meeting. The county attorney had not had a chance to go over the documentation. He has since that time. I'll let Jim speak on that briefly.
Sure, Commissioners, of the World contract, I did have time to review it, one, it's in order. This is a contract for the 2022 property reassessment. It's the print and mail services for the Indiana State Form and a notice for assessment of land and structure improvements. The cost of the computer services, and this will be a professional services contract, is $4,853.43. There is a postage cost that is added to that for a total estimated cost of the project of $9,585.86. However, in looking at the contract and what's been done in the past, this is a significant postage savings by using this company and this route. So one, you get the expertise, and two, it's estimated Owen County may save as much as $3,324.22 by using this contract. So yes, it's a spending of money, but it's a significant savings, and also it assures throughout. The contract adheres to all the requirements specifically by 22-517, E-Verify, and the minimum investment policies that were established. So it's completely in order, and it's professional service, so it's up to you, your pleasure to approve or disapprove the contract.
Thank you, Jim. And the savings is good to hear. Appreciate the work on that. Gentlemen, we talked about this, like I said, a couple of weeks ago. Do I hear a motion to approve that requires one signature? Yeah, that's it right there.
This is for all
The assessor's office.
I make that motion.
Have a motion by Bob,
I'll second.
have a second by Dale. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Sheila, is this your copy or is this Dusty's copy?
If you'll sign that one, he can have it, and I have.
Thank you much.
Have a good day.
You too.
Okay, update on the ARPA plan. We have approved the premium pay for the county employees. We have worked diligently to come up with a final master list. This has been sent out to the departments. Am I correct in stating it? Not yet, okay. It will be sent out to the departments to confirm. We have a total part-time and full-time, $247,000. $300,000 was appropriated for this, so there is $53,000 unspent. That will end up in a bucket at some point. But for today, we need to go ahead and approve the list. Moving forward, it will be turned over to the county council, but it also has to go through Barnes and Thornburg, and I'll let Jim speak on that briefly.
Sure. Commissioner, as you just pointed out, this is one of the buckets that was approved by the general plan, providing premium pay to eligible workers. The amount approved was $300,000, so that would be the general. This is now the more specific. My recommendation, if you would, is to establish the parameters of the list as far as that it's 2,000 for full-time, it's 1,000 for part-time, and if there's any hours or any trough area where there was a limit, if you're under these amount of hours, this would be the time to establish it. What would happen next then, if you approve now the specific proposal in the range of roughly $247,000, establish the parameters today, the list, my recommendation would be one, sending it out to the departments just to verify that there's not an oversight. Just say, for example, Mr. Smith, who's worked in this department for 20 years, just inadvertently was left off. I mean, we want to make sure that. Then if the auditor's office would then send the completed list to Barnes and Thornburg, if that could be done today or tomorrow, have them do the double vet just to make sure, because there's a cap on here. This is not a raise. And it is not a bonus. This is premium pay for the time worked, and it can only be so much. So the example I would use, if someone came in and only worked 10 hours in this past year at Owen County, they're not going to be eligible. That exceeds the cap for the premium pay. So that's what Barnes and Thornburg is looking at. Upon your approval on the double vetting that would go on, this could be presented to the Owen County Council at their next meeting. They would be, in essence, approving or disapproving and making the appropriation. If they make the appropriation at their next meeting, it would be just at the amount of time that the auditor's office would need to process the payroll. So approved today, approved by the county council, just in whatever amount of time the Owen County Payroll Department needs to actually produce the checks, that's what they would go out.
Thank you, Jim. And I received a updated list this morning from Sherry and Payroll. I personally spent 30 days back and forth with Sheila and Payroll, going back and forth with the list and determining, who's going to qualify by the hours worked, so on and so forth. There is a couple employees that were appropriated only X amount of hours, so we made sure that they were taken care of. They were about 300, not quite 300 hours below the 800 minimum, but that is the hours that they were appropriated to work, so those folks will get paid the part-time rate. Other than that, I'd like to go ahead and personally make a motion to approve this list. The list that I have, we can sign and pass that on to the auditor, and she can forward it on to Barnes and Thornburg. At least all three of us will sign it. Do I hear a second?
I second that motion.
Motion by myself, seconded by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
And you're gonna just so that I think there's clarity for your departments, the full-time people are getting $2,000, is that correct?
That is correct.
Part-time are
1,000.
1,000, but the cutoff is at
800 hours.
800 hours. Did the county make any exceptions to anyone in a trough area under?
We had 2 employees that fell into appropriated hours by the council that all they could work was 553 hours, and we had 2 individuals in that category. One of them missed it by about 10 hours, and we're going to go ahead and present them with the part-time pay.
Okay, so just kind of a clarification there. The reason it was under 800 was they had worked their amount of
Appropriated amount.
Appropriated hours.
Correct.
And then no elected officials are receiving this at all in compliance with the state law, and also no vendors or independent contractors. Say a person like myself, we do not qualify for this.
That is correct, and that's probably one of the things that took us the longest, is to make sure we didn't have grant people on here as well as contract individuals. So I think that we have done a really good job. I think Sherry and Sheila has worked diligently to get it right. They probably got tired of me going, what about this, what about that? But I wanted to make sure that we were doing what needed to be done, and all of our employees got paid, and the ones that didn't. So, with that being said,
And one other thing, are you adopting that in motion, then Gary, those parameters?
that is correct.
Okay, just to make sure there's.
I'll include that in the motion.
Okay.
You have that, Sheila. With that being said and being approved 3-0, I'll sign the back page of this. All three of us can do that, and we'll turn it over to Sheila to move forward. And while they're signing that, just touch briefly on the jail public hearing review. There was lengthy discussion, public hearing 2 weeks ago, over the jail issue. Speaking at $22 million at 2.75% interest, if that's even available to the county. That put a price tag of $30.5 million on a new jail for this county. It is well outside our financial means to do that. So we are looking and requesting Garmon to, that's the company that is doing the, not the engineering, but the construction plan, and to come up with a $15 million plan. That is kind of where our jail lit tax lies and is affordable for us to pay for, maybe with just a little additional help. But they've been asked and are going to present in 30 days a new plan at $15 million, more affordable for the county. We are not going to look at any tax increases for this project. We've done everything that we can do. So we're gonna make sure that those parameters work, either a refurb of the existing jail, or if they can come up with a $15 million new jail, that is the options that they have been given and is what they'll be bringing back to the table. So the $800,000 site plan that was mentioned the other night is off the table. I want everybody to know that. And we'll be looking at about 30 days for additional plans and the $15 million price range. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick.
Does that have to be a public meeting when they present that?
No.
Because we are like 14 to 15 days now of getting a meeting scheduled at best, so.
That'll be an administrative meeting. It won't be a full meeting.
Gary, can I touch on just a couple?
Go right ahead, Jim.
Sure, and.
Keep me out of trouble here.
Yeah, so in the request of a public meeting, public hearing, that the reason that answer is no, the public hearing took place roughly a meeting ago, 2 meetings ago. That public meeting was, the primary and the key purpose was to look at, is it possible to, one, do a multi-regional, multi-county jail with, say, Clay or Putnam or Monroe, or is it possible to transport other inmates with Greene, Clay, Monroe County, do that? Both of those options were presented in public meeting, public hearing, and those were eliminated. Those don't exist in a way that instead of building a jail, those two options unfortunately just are not possible for Owen County. So anything done in a meeting, like as far as what we're talking about, is this going to be approved or anything? Of course it would be, but as far as there's no longer need of a public hearing for it. So at the time we do the presentation, the time we do the bids or everything like that, it would be brought on. But the administrative part is basically $30.5 million is not feasible for Owen County. That would be almost a $1.6 million annual payment for the next 20 to 22 years, and it would bind up. On finances, Commissioner, I just want to be clear about the tax rates. The tax rates will not be going up. The tax rates are already at the maximum of 2.5%. Now, you probably heard, followed this in prior public hearings and meetings about a 22-year rule and when certain funds have to stop. So when the ordinance was passed, there specifically was a correctional facilities and rehabilitation facilities tax. That's at a 0.2% rate. That has a 22-year time limit. The clock is running on that. At 22 years, that rate has to be extinguished as far as in that category. It's also a one and done. Obviously you can't, after 22 years, just come back and run that up. So that 2% is on the clock. In following that, that 2% is going into a fund called 1233 Correctional Facility. This year, that amount is already fixed at $71,882.83. It's no more, it's no less, that's what is going in there. As of March 7th, as of today, there's $750,039.78 in there. So Commissioners, the reason taking the time here, as much as possible, that money has to be banked. That after the 22 years, this is, whether you call it the seed money, or the foundation money, or whatever term we want to use, that is, you're on the clock, 2 years down, 22-year time limit, it won't be anymore, so there's $750,000. Now, what was stated many, many times, and I do believe this, and now what I'm saying is not fact, this is just opinion. Even going with the lower project, the 1233 fund is not going to be enough. $70,000 a month, but by the time you have the project, the soft cost, the interest rate, and whatever amount, you're going to have to take this lit from somewhere else. Taxes cannot be raised. So public safety is at 0.9%. At other meetings, consultants, myself included, when we were talking about this new jail in 22 years, for shorthand, the 0.9 was just kind of lumped in, because this is absolutely true. Once the document is signed, the contract is signed, the pledged funds for that jail come first. So we're not doing that. We're not doing that. But had the county did the $30 million, the 1.6 million had to be pledged before salaries, before supplies, before anything like that. So the reason I bring that up, the 0.9, the other 2.3 of the lit tax does not have a time limit. That just exists. 20 years, 30 years, to the pleasure of the council. If they want to, it can't be raised if they would want to be lowered. You cannot lower it if you have a contract and you have obligations. Those are those bond obligations. But going through this whole thing, 20 years now is all we have left as a county on 1233. That will not be enough even for a $15 million jail project. So what will have to be done when that number comes up, whatever that number is, 15, 15.6, whatever it is, then out of either economic development, which is lit at it, or the sheriff's, what we're calling the sheriff's lit, or the general fund, that amount has to go to the jail and has to go first. So that's just something to keep in mind as I'm presenting that. We're on the clock, it's running, and there's not enough just in that fund. It will have to come from one of those three areas. There's no clock on those areas, but the moment it's committed, then then for the next 20 years, 2 decades, the county is committed out of that funding. That bill has to be paid first. So that's just kind of a general synopsis of where we are on funding. So it is kind of important that the government, RQAW, come back in the next 30 days, have some type of presentation for consideration, and then get to the numbers on seeing where it's going to have to be drawn from. Those are really your only 3 other choices. The other one, I just have a duty to state, but not going to do it, would be some type of property tax. And it's my understanding that the chances of that, which I agree on, are less than 0. There is no discussion of property tax. So if anyone hears that, that's just simply consultants.
I'm shaking my head no here, folks. Not gonna happen.
It's simply consultants that are saying, I have a duty to say there is A or B. No one's going to do that. So that's kind of a breakdown of what we would be financially on the project.
Thank you, Jim. Last part that I'll add to that with the reduction, we were at about 1.6. We're gonna probably still be looking at about 1.1 1.2, depending on where the interest rate comes in. So we're still gonna be $300,000 short of meeting that goal. As Jim just spoke, we've got 3 or 4 different avenues that money can come from, but that's kind of where we're at. So with that being said, we're gonna move on. I can't remember if it's been 2 weeks. I think it has been 2 weeks. We had an executive session, interviewed 8 or 9 individuals for a maintenance position that works under the commissioners, and I think today we're ready to make that appointment. I would like to make a motion that we approve Leonard Williams for the position. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Got a motion by myself for Leonard Williams. I have a second by Bob. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Who's Leonard, which one is Leonard Williams? Where does he live at?
Freedom.
Williams? Well, I was thinking about the guy that lives on Ramona Road.
So are you voting yea or nay?
Nay.
Nay. 2-1. All right, Jim, Title VI ADA compliance.
Okay, so I'm gonna explain this and why the county is doing this. The highway department, each year files requests for grants, they're federal grants, and they're through NDOT, most particularly be the Community Crossings Grant. We were notified by NDOT that in order to be considered and to receive these type of grants, Owen County needs to be in complete compliance with Title VI and ADA policies. Now, when I say that compliance, we're talking now about truly the technical part and paperwork that NDOT wants to see. There is absolutely nothing about that Owen County is not complying in Title VI and there's complaints or there's been issues. That is not it at all. These are paperwork they want to see as far as a specific type of form. They would like to see a policy that more specific than a policy book. So over starting today and between now and July, the Owen County Auditor, myself, and the Highway Department will be doing all of the paperwork documents that we're bringing in here. Like one of these is an organizational chart. Owen County has an organizational chart, just that the NDOT representative in this area doesn't have it. These are the type of things that we'll be doing. So today, commissioners have 3 documents for your consideration. One is a letter dated of today's date, March 7th of 2022. This will be sent to the Title VI ADA program, Indiana Department of Transportation in Indianapolis. This letter breaks down Owen County's recognition of the paperwork that needs to be submitted to them. And there's an action plan by July 1st of 2022 that all of the paperwork for the non-discrimination notice, the ADA grievance procedure, and the Title VI implementation plan, all required sections, we can complete that in-house. Now, there is one section requesting permission for December 31st. That is going to have to be an outside consulting firm because basically the sidewalks, ramps for the public meetings need to be measured, they need to have documentation, and this is really something as far as when it comes to the engineering, that really we don't have an in-house person that would be best suited for this. I will be looking at possible firms that bring those to your attention. Obviously, we want one that would be competent and the least expensive. I mean, that goes without saying. So there will be one outside. I think all the rest we can do internally. So you have the letter. What would need to be done if you approve the letter, this needs to go on the highways letterhead. The highway department has a copy for Mr. Melton, the superintendent, to sign. And then that needs to be submitted today. That needs to be emailed to the NDOT office today. You have a grievance complaint form, it's 2 pages. It follows the NDOT requirements. That is for your consideration. And I would say there's a personnel policy, 115, that would need to be read, if that's okay, and to approve that. And my recommendation then, if you approve all 3 of these, is to submit these to NDOT today, the letter absolutely, and then we'll work on this for July 1st and December 31st. This compliance is also good for the entire county. This is specifically like with NDOT, but for any other county office receiving a federal grant, this will also work for the same compliance for any of their grants. So this is Owen County Board of Commissioners, Owen County Personnel Policy. It's number 115, Grievance Procedure, Disabilities Act. This is effective date, if approved by the Commissioners, is March 7th of 2022. The Grievance Procedure under the Americans Disabilities Act. The Grievance Procedure is established to meet the requirements of American Disabilities Act of 1990 ADA. It may be used by anyone who wishes to file a complaint alleging discrimination on the basis of disability in the provision, services, activities, programs, or benefits of Owen County, Indiana. Owen County Personnel Policy governs employment-related complaints and disability discrimination. This complaint should be in writing and contain the above information about discrimination, such as name, address, phone number of the complainant, location, date, description, and problem. Alternative means of filing a complaint, such as personal interviews, tape recording of the complaint, will be made available to the person with disability upon request. This complaint should be submitted to the grievant or designee as soon as possible, by no later than 60 days after the alleged violation would be. I would want to point out that the county auditor, in addition to all the other terms, has volunteered to be the ADA coordinator and has taken upon that role on top of all the other responsibilities of that office. So it would be sent to Sheila Reeves, ADA coordinator, Owen County auditor, 60 South Main Street, Spencer, Indiana, 47460, and the phone of 812-829-5000. Within 15 days of the receipt, the complaint with Sheila Reeves or designee will meet with the complaint to discuss the complaint and possible resolution. 15 days, calendar days, the meeting with Sheila Reeves or designate will respond in writing or where appropriate in a format accessible to complaints, such as large print, braille, audio, tape. The response will explain the position of Owen County and offer options for substantive resolution of the complaint. If the response by Sheila Reeves or designate does not satisfactorily respond to resolve the issue, the complainant or designee will appeal the decision within 15 calendar days of the receipt of the response from Ms. Sheila Reeves or designee. Within 15 days after the receipt of the appeal, the President of the Board of Commissioners or his designee will meet with the complainant, discuss the complaint and resolution. Within 15 calendar days of the meeting, the President of the Board of Commissioners or designee will respond in writing where appropriate in format accessible to complaint and the final resolution of the complaint. All written complaints provided by Sheila Reeves are appeals to the Board President of the Board of Commissioners, and responses were retained by the Owen County for at least 3 years. If so, this will be passed and adopted on the Board of Commissioners of Owen County, State of Indiana, regular meeting held on today's date and month of 2022. Owen County Board of Commissioners, Gary Burke, President, Robert Gray, Vice President, Del Du Bois, Commissioner, attested by Sheila Reeves, the Auditor. And if you approve all 3 of these, we definitely would want to send these to NDOT today.
Thank you, Jim. And I'm going to ask for motions individually on each of these forms, since all 3 of them are different. So first, with the Owen County Board of Commissioners, Owen County Personnel Policy 115, Grievance Procedure under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I make a motion, we approve that.
Have a motion by Bob, have a second by Dale. All in favor?
Aye.
And Sheila, we're gonna sign the copy that I have here, since I don't see one tagged anywhere. If that's okay, unless you had one somewhere. We got one here, pass it. I'll just use my copy if that's all right. Second is the complaint grievance form. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Make a motion, we approve that.
I have a motion by Bob. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Dale. All in favor? Aye. This form does not require a signature. That is just now, just put that with the policy. Whenever he puts it in the pile down there. And thirdly is the Title VI ADA program for NDOT. So this highway superintendent can sign this letter and submit it on highway letterhead to NDOT today. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Make a Motion to approve that.
I have a motion by Bob. Do I hear a second? I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. Greg, here's a copy of this. If you want this one, you'll put it on county letterhead and it's got right a spot for your signature on the back page.
You get me a copy of it.
No signature, just prove that.
All right. Next order of business, under new business, you'll see the Owen County Library parking lot agreement. We are going to move past that this morning. We've got a couple different agreements from previous commissioners, one going all the way back to 1996. We're going to review that and get back with Ginger at a later date when we come up with a determination on how we want to proceed. With that being said, John Parmley with Epic Insurance. Morning, John.
Morning.
Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. Try to oversimplify.
Appreciate that.
To the best of my ability, right?
Yeah, we need simplified.
So, in front of you, you have, just kind of a simple breakdown. Start with the premium comparison. I won't go through it line by line. I'll kind of hit the highlights. I mean, the best news is, if you look just at the bottom line, we have a 4.4% increase year over year. I think that's fantastic. We increased building values by 3%. I want you to go to the bottom of the page and look at the work comp. We made some pretty significant adjustments to the work comp. Jim helped me go through this. We went through the past audits, and as Gary, you know, they were pretty skewed.
Yeah.
That's mild. That's, am I supposed to put it mildly, probably? But the payroll.
Just real
Oh, yeah.
quick, just so I can let the public know.
Yeah.
We had IPEP as workingman's comp. We were dropped by them. We had a large worry of our rate of workingman's comp. And with that being said, and what John just said, working with Jim in different departments, John has done an outstanding job keeping that from getting out of control. And with that being said, I'll let you continue.
Well, thank you. It's been a lot of people, not just me. So we took those payroll numbers and increased them by 6%. So we took the past audit that was more than what was on the policy and increased that by 6% because I was at the meeting 2 weeks ago. Is that right? With the public hearing, whenever that was. There was some discussion about raises and some things like that. So what I'm trying to do is make sure we don't get in an audit situation to where we get dinged on the backside. And so, as you'll see there, we increased payroll by $1 million and our premium went down. So, we took advantage of every opportunity that we could there. There's a couple of things that I just kind of want to bring to your attention, and we'll kind of come back to that. But I think things are moving in the right direction. We cannot take the foot off the accelerator by any stretch. We're going to do some training with Greg. I kind of have a schedule that I'm going to send to you about. We're going to do some job inspections, site inspections. We're going to do some driver training and some various. I got a few ideas I'm going to send to him. Let him kind of pick that. We're going to do this live. Frank from our office is going to do those. We took this to market. We went to Travelers, Trident, Liberty, Astra, and back to EMC, which was your past carrier. Frankly, no takers. Multiple reasons by that, but 3 of those told me if we keep doing the things we're doing, next year looks very promising. So we have to keep doing that. The Accident Review Board is helping.
Thank you. I was going to hit on that just a little bit. We've initiated an accident review board with some department heads, highway, EMS, sheriff departments involved, myself, something that we've implemented basically at the end of last year to try to reduce our rates. And I think it's working very well. Again, it's something we've just got started on, but I think that the intent is for the different insurance companies to take notice that we are working forward and trying to reduce liability in every avenue that we can. So
that's correct. And so that, like I said, I told you 3 years ago, it's like telling a story. That's part of the story. We've got to take hard looks at each accident. Are they preventable? What can we do to keep from happening again? So forth and so If you go to the last page that's in there, I just want this for you. This is the breakdown of how we did the payrolls. And then you'll see the estimateds there that we have on the policy, and you can see where we did those increases. In the past, there's always been a physicians and an attorney. That's basically your courts and your health department. Those are gonna be moved to clerical with this new company. It's not like they went away, it's just how they do it. Everybody does it a little bit differently. So that's an advantage there. Not an advantage, it's gonna cause us a little bit of havoc, Jim, as we do some of our breakdowns. But we'll just work through that. I mean, it's not a big deal, we just need to understand it. The toughest piece we have today is the cyber. Jim, is that his name?
Yeah, Jim Norton.
Thanks. So I talked to Jim, we have to get this MFA implemented. It's in the process, he tells me it's gonna be a month. The company told me Friday they wouldn't renew it without it. We have asked them for a 30-day extension. As of this minute, I don't have an answer on that, but I'm still working on that, so I'll report back to that, okay? So we have to have that in place. He's aware, we went through this morning, we talked a little bit about that. So, one thing before I forget, I wanna have a billing call, if you will, and I'd like to do that. I have Friday morning written down, it's not in gospel, but what I would like to do, I think there's been some discussion in the past about, do we know what's due when? And are we allocating it correctly internally from our billing to yours, and does it match? So.
Very important, John, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so I would like to do that Friday morning, if that's okay. And who wants on it?
Well, it would be,
I will be out of town, so
well, the auditor's office absolutely with the billing, but you would want departments, EMS, Sheriff's Department, Highway Department, Health Department, and Probation. All of those departments have some level of line appropriation, either for liability insurance or workman's comp. So very important that a representative from each one of those departments also be on the call.
So auditor, EMS, Health, Probation, Highway. Sheriff.
Sheriff.
yeah, it's crucial to those budgets, and I'm not picking at Sheila here because it was prior to her, but previously, they may just have $90,000 taken out of their fund
Yeah.
that fast, and, when they weren't prepared for it, and they had a big purchase, so we need to work with the departments, the auditor's office, to make sure that those things aren't happening. Especially the sheriff now, he's on the cash balance budget, and he can't handle those kind of hits as well, so, and I think we've talked maybe on some quarterly billing, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct, and we'll set out the whole billing schedule, after that meeting, we'll send it out to whoever wants it. You wanna be on that, Jim?
Yeah.
Good news.
You can send it, whatever you come up with in an email to me, John, I just won't be able to make the meeting Friday.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll send out an invite to that meeting and we'll make that happen. I do need this workers' comp application signed. From a billing perspective, just FYI, and Jim and I have talked about this, the only monies that we'll really need in March are this. We will, after we have our meeting on Friday to make sure we get it billed, set up how you want it, we will send out those invoices. They probably won't go to the next week and they'll be due 30 days, so sometime into April. But the work comp is very important, and that, if we can, best done, you'll set up an online portal and you'll pay direct to them.
Will that work?
Okay, so we go over that in the call, but this application needs to be signed, and so I can leave it, or I don't know who wants to sign it, so.
No, we'll do that here this morning. Matter of fact, I'll make a motion if you wanna give me that. We'll just take care of that right now.
I'll give you the whole app, I'll make you a copy.
Does it require just one signature?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those 2 pages, and we'll make you a copy and send them out to you, there's the entire app. So,
I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion, to get this out of the way so we can move forward. Make a motion, that I myself sign this document so we can continue with our workman's comp insurance coverage. Do I hear a motion?
You making a motion or you?
I'm asking for a motion. I
Oh.
may have said I was,
Yeah, you did.
I'm sorry, yeah.
I make that motion.
I have a motion by Bob, do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a second by Dale, all in favor? Aye. All right, John, go ahead.
One other thing on your premium sheet there, we did shop out the property insurance. It's been with Chubb ever since we wrote the account. We've done a pretty good job on claim service, I think. I know they have. But we did get originally got a better quote from Hanover. Got a couple other quotes, but they weren't as good. We went back to Chubb with Hanover's number. They actually came in a little bit less after we beat them up to get it down below Hanover's. Hanover's very picky on loss control. And frankly, I didn't want to go through that if we didn't have to, so we don't have to. But I just wanted you to know that, so. Again, we're moving in the right direction. We just can't take our foot off the gas. Got to continue to do those things from a training perspective. The other pages in there are the breakdown, the summaries of the coverages. I mean, I can go through them in depth if you want. The liabilities are there, sexual molestation, coverage for the jail.
It's all pretty self-explanatory. What I would like you to do here in a public meeting, John, is kind of give everyone an idea of where we were at previously with our total workman's comp and liability to where we are moving forward today.
Sure. So, specifically workers' comp, last year the expiring premium was $207,195. This year, it's gonna be $173,810. As you know, those are estimated based off of payrolls. We can audit those up or down. So if payrolls go up a bunch, it'll go up. If it goes down, it'll go down. Although we did increase the payrolls by $1 million. The biggest increase, frankly, is in the cyber liability. I hate to say it, I mean, it's a 38% rate increase. That's one of the better ones I've seen in the past couple of weeks. I was telling Jim, I had an offer on the table for a 3-1 renewal that I had effective. I had the quote 2-1, Russia invaded Ukraine, and they pulled my quote and increased my rate 20%. So have a nice day, I guess. So the cyber is up 38% on a relatively small number, $5,971 to $8,229. So the total account last year was $574,729. The renewal is $600,248, an increase of 4.4%. Again, with a 16% increase of payroll, a 9.5% increase in value of vehicles. Value in vehicles is just going up every year. I mean, that's talking about inflation. Vehicles is probably at the top of that with fuel. And we increased property values by 3%. So again, Cliff Notes version. So what questions can I answer?
4.4% is outstanding as far as I'm concerned with what we're talking about, what we're dealing with in today's society. I can't say enough about you, John. Appreciate everything your company does. Sheila's got something. She's about ready to pop over here.
Okay, so going back to the premium pay at $247,000, is that better not to increase the payroll side of stuff because of our rates and do those as just a separate check, keep it outside of payroll? Or does that $247,000?
Say that one more time.
So they approved the $247,000 for the premium pay. Would it be better to do that as a one-time check to employees and not include it in the payroll?
If that's a one-time bonus, it's a one-time bonus, non-reoccurring, correct?
It could possibly reoccur one more time next year, John, but it is not part of payroll.
If it's not part of payroll, we won't pick it up. So.
It is not figured as part of their pay. Am I correct saying that, Jim?
Yeah, this is a premium. This is not an increase in the salary. This is based upon the
And that's a good question.
amount that COVID, working in the COVID, exposing yourself to COVID, the ARP has allowed counties to go back and pay a premium for that amount.
Yeah, so that's not a non-reoccurring. If we have a work comp loss, that is gonna be based on the payroll that we had that will be reoccurring.
Correct.
Right, this is not adding any additional
Yeah.
people on there, so, the rate of, and even the rate of pay is not changing. So a person making $15 an hour still makes $15 an hour. This is just in this case, it is true it could happen again, but right now it has not, and so it's just simply a one-time pay.
Yeah, so we would not, in the estimates going forward, I think the question is, should we include that? I would say no. These estimates here, just to be clear, are based off of past audits that are real payroll that we've increased to get current. As you know, I think you know, Sheila, I mean, IPEP was incredibly delayed in getting some of those audits done. The last one was a $40,000 increase that we got waived. So we didn't have to pay that, so that's good news. So we took that higher audit and increased that by 6%. So if you look at these numbers and you tell me those are way too high, I can adjust those. These are not gospel. I just didn't want us to have a $30,000 audit next year.
Right, and I put that in our budget, commissioner's budget, because that was our past history. So I hope that we don't have to spend that audit money, but it is in there.
Correct.
Jim, do you have I don't have it in front of me, do you have our total, insurance budget, for 2022 compared to what we're looking at here with John?
Sure, so what was done for an appropriation for liability insurance was $390,367. They're made, and I believe that encompasses every one. If I missed one, it's gonna be very slight. So $390,367 is the appropriation.
I apologize, Jim, I found it, go ahead.
Yeah, the amount is $426, so on one hand, so now is the county now gonna have to get $30,000 appropriation for more insurance? Answer is no, not yet, we're not at that level, because the appropriation for workman's comp was $227,915. That's gonna come in at $173,810, even with the $1 million cushion, so we don't have the possibility of an audit. So there's $54,105 available in workman's comp that can now be transferred into the line items of the liability. You're still gonna have money left over. So even with the 4.4 increase total, which is much less than what was expected, the lower of the workman's comp, what departments, very important on their billing, is to understand the quarterly, and then they're gonna be able to transfer from their general liability, from the workman's comp to the general liability, and cover this. So the only, two questions I have, one, have to take a look at the commissioner's section, that may be a little tight, and two, the highway revenue stream probably is gonna have to be quarterly. EMS and the other departments could probably do this either biannually or even workman's comp annually, but the highway won't be able to. So these numbers are much better than what was anticipated. Again, I mean, we're just kind of on this trend, and the fact that maybe not even have to use that $40,000 for an audit, but by using this, we're looking at the possibility of a savings of $70,000 this year in insurance.
That's good news.
That is very good news, and for the first time in a long time, a real budget was put together from this department to give us realistic numbers. And I think that says a lot for, and again, I'm not gonna pat myself on the back, but for these gentlemen here, as we all sit here, to look into the future and to make sure that what happened in the past doesn't continue. So,
And you'll do that budget again in July-ish?
July, August, yes.
I can help you at that point too. I mean, I can go in and help
Right,
try to.
and
project it.
if you remember, last year
Yeah.
went around and checked with yourself and group health insurance and all these different avenues to make sure that we were getting realistic numbers, because in the past we weren't.
Yeah.
So,
I have the auto ID cards with me today. I'll leave those when I leave. Forgot to bring them up here.
this has been approved, signed, so go.
I will send this electronic copy of this back to you when it's executed. I will set up that meeting for Friday. We'll do it some kind of call, I don't know how. but we'll-
Thank you for your hard work, John.
Hey, thank you, appreciate all the business, if you need anything, let me know.
Thank you very much.
Before we leave this topic, can I just emphasize, this conference call on Friday for the departments is absolutely important. Departments, you have a worksheet, your appropriation was already established by the county council. The percent of the amount that your department has to pay to get to the 100%, that's already been determined by the county council. Now, I only went out 4 digits, so there has to be a little bit of rounding. With the commissioner's permission, I just went, so we're talking about a few dollars, that got rounded to the commissioner. So your budgets for the highway, sheriff, EMS, food services, probation, those are gonna match up. What you wanna take a look at is you're gonna see you're gonna be under on workman's comp. Start looking ahead on Friday if you could on the way to transfer that for your liability and on the payments. But you have those worksheets, the amount went down actually slightly, so I'll make adjustments. And I believe from the auditor's office, I think we've got one more department for workman's comp too.
Building.
You're in workman's comp too?
Mhm.
Okay, I'll do, all right, so we'll add those two in, that will drop the amount a little bit. Okay,
We
thanks.
wanna make sure that everybody's involved in that gets notified for Friday, Sheila. I know Chris isn't here, so we can make sure that that's taken care of.
Hi, Commissioner Burton. I don't see CASA listed on the agenda, but I've been speaking with John and with Jim about, I wanted to make you aware of something. We have an anonymous donor.
I'm aware of that.
Okay, and also with respect to insurance, we just spoke this morning, John and I did, about whether or not the location of the office, the property owner could be added as additional insured from a liability aspect if they require that as a part of their lease agreement. And I was told that can happen, so I am going to leave unless you have any other questions for me.
You're good to go. I've spoke to Jim. I'm aware of all this. I was aware of the insurance. I'm glad that you two have spoke, and it looks like we're moving in the right direction on that.
Thank
So
you so much.
you have a good day. You just want to hurry up and get out of here is why you jumped up like that. I got you. Have a good day. You have anything else, Jim?
No, that's it, thank you.
All right. Next is the planning commission. We have public hearings, 2 different individuals. We're gonna have 2 different public hearings. We'll start with BWS Real Estate Holdings, your representative.
Here's to get situated, there's a number of procedure, I know everybody just talks all the time, but there are some number of procedure things we really need to discuss.
Go right ahead.
So, commissioners, just so you know, this comes to you for sometimes what is called a zone map change. This is a request of a rezoning an area, so that areas are zoned in one area, one category, they're requesting it to be changed. So there's some very specific rules. So one, as you're listening to the presentations, both for those who would be in favor and those who are against, if any, it's under Indiana Code 36-7-4-603. This law requires you to pay attention to these 5 areas in your discussion. The comprehensive plan, the current conditions and character, current character, structures, and uses in each district, the most desirable use for land in which each district is adapted, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction, and responsible development and growth. So those are the statutory issues that you're looking for when you hear the presentation. The building coordinator is here, GSS coordinator. So Susan, can we go through a little bit? Did you publish any notice of any kind for this meeting?
Yes,
Can you go ahead and explain to what notice requirements you have?
I put a notice, a legal notice in the newspaper. I placed the legal notice on the board out here in the hallway. I sent out letters to all the adjoining property owners notifying them of the meeting today. And, we placed a sign at the property for notification, all 10 days prior to
Okay,
this
so
meeting.
So Commissioner, this is, as long as that's represented, we want that represented in the minutes. This is actually above and beyond, notice requirements of 5-14-1.55. What's been done is the notice has been completely satisfied by statute, but in addition, Owen County has taken the next step as far as sign, 10-day, and notifying. So all those procedures would be met. Today, as far as your decision, you may approve, you may deny, or you may table for more information. The clock would start today. You would want any time from today in the next 90 days as far as when a decision is made. At the end of 90 days, if no decision has been made, it's as if you did make the decision that it was a positive and it's allowed. This went first, it goes to the Plan Commission. That has occurred. The Plan Commission has documented, and they have put out that there was a hearing, that there was a request to make this into industrial, into heavy. They have certified to you by law that their notice was sent out to all adjacent members 10 days prior. Notice was placed in the newspaper 10 days prior. The proposed request was available for public inspection 10 days prior to their meeting. They have found in writing that the rezoning of this property would not adversely affect adjacent landowners, and the Plan Commission has found the proposed rezoning of the property is consistent with the master plan. They have voted 7-0. They are an advisory. That is their total authority. You can accept their recommendation, you can deny the recommendation, but it did go before them. They being the Plan Commission, made stipulations that they would ask for a correction on a report that was going to the Spencer PD and the Owen County Sheriff's Department, and the Plan Commission had requested that a fence be put up on the property. Those are contingencies, are sometimes called reasonable restrictions, that were placed upon them. You also have the authority to continue with those or to eliminate those. This was signed by Norm Warner, the president of the Owen County Plan Commission, and secretary of the Owen County Plan Commission, Suzanne Zimmerman. So you have before you then the certified findings of the Plan Commission. There is also an ordinance where you would be considering on whether or not you want to do that. If you do get to that point, that ordinance would need to be read out loud, and you would take a vote. The vote is by majority of the members. You have all three members here, so it would be take a vote of 2 members.
Thank you, Jim. So officially opening up the public hearing for the BWS Real Estate Holdings. Go ahead, folks.
Sure. So Blackwood Solutions recycles utility poles for electric utilities. We do that at a price that saves them money versus landfilling. And the way we do that is we sort out good poles and give them to farmers, whether it's directly to their farm or we allow them to pick up free poles for fence posts right there on that yard. What's left over, we shred, and it becomes a road base at the landfill. So it saves the landfill money versus gravel. We had a change in the way that we process those poles, which triggered IDEM to have a different opinion about our permitting. So we brought in Vet Environmental to get our permitting up to date with IDEM. One thing they caught is that we were commercially zoned instead of industrial, which put us here. At the meeting, there was a request for a fence, and we have already built that fence a couple weeks ago. Drive past it, you probably noticed. Yeah, so whatever questions you got, I'm happy to answer.
I'll open it up for the public. Is there anybody out here in the public that has any questions or comments? Sam, go ahead.
You just own the land or you just leasing the land?
We own both entities. One entity owns the land, the other entity leases it, but Jamie and I own them all.
Okay.
So you lease it to yourself, basically?
We lease it to ourselves.
Gotcha. Norm, I'm gonna ask you some questions, if you wanna fill us in a little bit on the Planning Commission's decision as president of the board. Any opinion, if you could share with us, please?
Sure. So when they presented,
I personally gave heavy credence to the expert. They did produce a rather large document. Obviously, we couldn't read that during the meeting. As I read through that, I do have some questions about the base underneath not being what it suggested in the paperwork. So I think you're on gravel right now, and I was pretty sure that in the paperwork it called for basically asphalt or something of that nature. So that's on me. I should have tabled until I had a chance to read the document, and I won't make that mistake again. Really, that was the only other thing. I know we had asked about leaching into the ground, and you guys assured us that was not a problem. And so those went into our decisions, I'm sure. Like I said, we probably should have went through the document before we made a decision. That would have been prudent on my part, so I'll take that one on the chin. But that was one thing that stuck out to me when I actually read the document, was that the base doesn't meet what's in there, in my opinion. And I'm not a legal mind, but so other than that, like I said, I gave a lot of credence to the expert and what these folks were telling us about. Does it infiltrate the groundwater? We were told no. And does it get into the ground itself? And we were told no. So that's pretty much.
Thank you, Norma, I appreciate that.
I can speak to the surfacing issue a little bit. Just that has been in contact with IDEM throughout this process, and we're just waiting to hear exactly how much of the surface needs to be covered by asphalt millings.
So we still have that in the discussion. It's not been finalized yet. Okay.
What more specifically, we met with them and they verbally said, where your shredder sits, we want you to have an impermeable surface underneath that shredder. And then when the permit,
that's what we submitted.
the formal request, that's what we submitted, and then they said, we think maybe we'd rather you have the entire site impermeable. We have said, we're gonna do whatever you decide is necessary. You said this verbally, this is what you're saying in writing. Renee, I want you, for those that weren't in the meeting, to discuss how do we know that we're not contaminating the groundwater? What testing was done?
Yeah, so Blackwood, at least annually, right, does toxicity characteristic leachate procedure analysis, which is where they basically take any kind of substance that you submit to the lab and they simulate leaching like you would in a landfill. So whether or not there are harmful chemicals that are going to leach out of that substance and infiltrate the groundwater or soil. And all of the results that we've gotten back are far below the acceptable levels. So we follow the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, RCRA, kind of characteristics for what is a hazardous material, and all of the parameters that we test for, that they've tested for, are far, far below those limits.
And that really points back to the wood treating industry. If there was a leaching into the groundwater problem, you wouldn't have a pole in your front yard, nor would everybody else, or at the school, or they're everywhere. So by the design of the chemicals, when they're treating that wood, you can't have a groundwater problem. So it goes back over the last 50 years of what's the chemicals in those and what are the leaching characteristics. So
John, our health department, I would like to get your input on this, John, and your thoughts. I know you've been over our landfill for years, so you're familiar with this.
What chemicals have you tested for?
I would have to double check the list, but it's the metals, the Resource Recovery and Conservation Act metals, creosote, byproducts.
and the orphanol, another treatment.
Okay, well, it's my understanding that fentanyl is coming off the market through the EPA in 2024.
Right.
So, and some hesitancy on the health department's part is because about 20 years ago, we went through a Superfund cleanup and core phenol increase. And,
And that site's just north of Gosport, northeast of
Was
Gosport.
that a treating facility?
It was.
Yes, yeah.
And that property still sits there vacant today.
Yeah, that's.
And so that's a concern here.
so that's a real concern for the health department.
Right.
I know that there's a lot of residue that comes from the grinder and what have you, and I think the health department would like to see test results of the groundwater and, soil samples to make sure that it stays within parameters that it's supposed to. I know that there's about a 25 item punch list for IDEM for you guys to get done.
Yep.
Part of which is the impervious surface, collection of leachate, and all that. So that's kind of, and right now, as far as I can tell, that none of that's in place at this point.
They have given us a conditional permit to operate while that gets in place. What changed specifically is there was no permit needed when we were crushing with a skid loader. We had a shear. And then when we started shredding, they determined that was the shredding with the processing of waste, so they bumped us up to the next level.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, didn't the parent material go from primarily untreated to treated?
No, it's always been treated on that side. And still, if we went back to the skid loader processing, no permit is needed by IDEM. It's the shredder that makes the processing permit necessary. But we are going to fully comply with IDEM. We've cooperated from day one.
Yeah, and we'll submit the final approval when we get it. They have as much time as they want to review and approve, so right now we're just, kind of like you said, sort of just checking things off the list and making sure we're in compliance.
Bob, you were part of the planning commission. You have any comments or opinions?
I'm with Norm. We got the wool trying pulled over our eyes and stuff. IBM should have, however much you're supposed to have the hard service there, you're crying vague on it, we're vague on it. So
We're gonna do exactly what they tell us.
yeah,
to do.
have they ever give you the exact answer? How many?
They're not. We just, our attorney talked to them last week and they said, we hope to have an answer next week. So, and as soon as they give us an answer, then we will act on it.
Well, then I'm all for waiting, table this.
Well, that's kind of where I'm at. I'd like to see some more information. I'd like to make sure that you're complying with IDEM on the hard surface underneath. John's correct. We had a serious problem with a cleanup with Chryso before.
Yep.
I'm not doubting anything that you're telling me. I have a hard time believing that it doesn't contaminate soil, but maybe it's so minute that it's not picking it up. It's within the parameters of the state. I'd like to see that. But at this time, I'm gonna ask for a motion to table until we get this information, and then we can come back and do it properly. We don't wanna leave you hanging out with something that's not proper, and we don't want to approve something that isn't as well. So if we all do our homework here a little bit more, I think we can come to a resolution. Norm, you have any other comments or questions?
No,
Do you agree with that decision?
I'm good with that, yes.
Okay.
It's 30 days work, because there is some notice requirements.
Sure, and that was my next question. Will that give you time to get the information that you need?
Good question. We've been told that they hope to have an answer next week, but, so what's gonna happen is I think they've given us a 12-month conditional permit to operate. We've been told expect to have an answer next week on what has to happen. And so then, they're in this, they'll give a recommendation, we'll act on it. They can't issue a permit until the zoning's changed, so.
So we should have some answers within 30 days.
I think so. I think it's very likely that
I
we
got
have
a
an answer.
question.
If we put that, if we put that on them and say this is what we're waiting on for zoning, I think it's likely they can push that forward. It's not a tough decision.
Sure. And I want you to understand part of, I want to say our concern, because we're agreeing on this together. We're working on developing that area out there for home growth, and that is the kind of the growth of the county is kind of in that direction.
Sure.
You know, we've got a developer talking about building $400,000 and $500,000 homes right down the road from you.
Yep.
We've got to protect that interest as well, so we got to make sure that we're doing everything proper. Go ahead, sir.
I think what they're doing is a good thing for the area, but I've worked with creosote for 25 years off and on. Creosote, the definition of that is it's a carcinogenic. A carcinogenic is a cancer-causing agent, and there's gotta be water and creosote being put in the drainage ditches out there right now after last night's rain. That's all I have to say.
And I appreciate your input. But with all that being said, I'm gonna make a motion to table at this time, and with BWS to bring back within 30 days the information that we've requested.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And the public hearing is closed in that matter. Next up, public hearing, Kevin Cooper. Zone change from agriculture to residential. Mr. Cooper, if you want to come up.
And while he's doing that, let me just do the procedure.
Go right ahead.
Okay, even though,
John, thank you for being here.
for everyone that, we just went through, this is a separate zoning request, so we need to go through kind of the same procedures. So commissioners, this is a zone request from agricultural, to, residential, single family. The same rules apply for 36-7-4603. When you're hearing comments for those who are in favor of this zone request or against, if there are any, there are 5 areas by law you must look at. 36-7-4-603, you're looking to discuss this in terms of the comprehensive plan, the current conditions and character of the current structures and uses in each district, the most desirable use for each land in each district is adapted, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction, and responsible development and growth. This is the start of the request. It is also on a 90-day clock. You may approve it today, you may deny it today, or you can take one for information 90 days from start today. Mr. Dan, if we could, on the notice, could you please inform the commissioners of what notice requirements we're adhered to for this hearing?
Okay. So a legal notice was placed in the newspaper, and the legal notice was also posted on the board out here, same as the other. There was letters sent to all the adjoining property owners, and there was a sign placed at the property. All these things were done 10 days prior to this meeting.
Commissioners, that would totally comply above and beyond the agenda notice of 5-14-1.5.5 notice, and would be adhered to. This is a certified findings of the advisory plan. Certified findings of the Plan Commission. They have in writing confirmed and placed this on your docket, because this is a change from agricultural to residential. They are certifying their documents that prior to having their meeting, notice was sent out to all adjacent landowners, certified mail 10 days prior to the meeting, and the proof was submitted. Notice was placed in the newspaper of general circulation 10 days prior to the meeting, same as attached. The proposed request was available for public inspection, but it's 10 days prior to the hearing. The Plan Commission, by a vote of 7-0 to approve this request, found that the rezoning of this property would not adversely affect adjacent landowners, and they found that the proposed rezoning of the property is consistent with the master plan. However, there was a contingency with their approval. They on the part, they wanted the part where the phases say that these areas of the zone were stricken, so that was the written request for the contingency, and you may do that. Specifically, it says with the part of the merging the phrases together be stricken. This is now before your decision for a public hearing. Those who wish to speak in favor or against. If you would approve this today, there needs to be signatures on the findings of the Plan Commission, and there is an actual ordinance that would need to be read and approved by the commission.
Thank you, Jim. Officially opening the public hearing for Kevin Cooper. Mr. Cooper, go ahead.
All right. Thanks for having me in here this morning. So not a lot has changed, I guess, since we was at the last meeting, other than I did go ahead and contact Abram Moss, the drainage study department, and they've started the drainage study. I was in contact with her yesterday for a few minutes, said everything's going great, no surprises. Looking at being done with her process in a week. And then I guess Mr. Meyer, David Meyer, is doing the surveying of this to account for the power lines and all this, the sinkholes and the different obstacles that we have. The biggest thing I can say is I'm growing up in the county and doing work on Rolling Meadows 1, finishing Rolling Meadows 1 subdivision out. And then recently, we've got 4 houses that are near completion on Rolling Meadows 2. 3 of those 4 will be closed by the end of this week, and then we'll have 1 left to complete that. That it is, I guess this is kind of my baby per se, to try to get this developed and make it right, because if this isn't done right, it's gonna come back and haunt me and impact where I go from here and how I go do business. So I don't want to leave any problems behind. So we're definitely willing to comply with all the situations with drainage and sinkholes and the neighbors. We've tried to allow each neighbor to have input into our decision, because like I tell them, me and my wife's not moving here, so I'm open to suggestions in terms of within reason. This is part of our income, so it's not like we're making these decisions based solely upon something we want in our yard. So if we can adjust a little bit within reason and keep neighbors happy, that's what we've done. So I guess with that being said, just asking to keep the ball rolling to get this switched over so that we can then get the drainage study and the surveys completed and back to you guys and try to build some more houses.
How many acres are we talking here, Kevin, and how many more houses are you talking about building?
There's 14.2 acres total. Currently, the way it sits, if you guys on your map up there on the screen, on the north portion of that, there's 1.5 acres that's already separated for whatever reason in the past. It was separated, but we're trying to put that all together, make 14.2 acre division. There's a roadway that's going to split those 2 in half. The power lines will dictate our total numbers. No more than, it looks like no more than 12. I mean, obviously to me, it makes most sense to get as many as I can, but realistically 11, maybe at 12th lot. We want to do our due diligence and not push the lines and boundaries anymore, especially with the possibilities of if they ever increase the setbacks, we want to still be good citizens and make sure we're proactive in that. So, yeah. That's kind of where we're at, is that 11 to 12 range on houses. We do have a drainage issue that a couple of the, I think it's lot 4 and 5 now, there's a sinkhole that's on subdivision Rolling Meadows 2, that the water pond's there, so we gotta be mindful of that as well. Which that'll probably allow for like 1.5 acres with to not impact that any, a couple 1.5 acre lots to make us a little bigger.
I've been out there myself personally with Norm and Greg looking at some different situations. Glad to see new homes being built, really am. One concern I know that a citizen had, and I know Norm and I talked about it, the one road that cuts through there shines right in the back of those residents' home. Is there any way to move that road 50 feet the other direction to the north?
So what we have talked about with them a little bit with that homeowner, I mean, we could do that. So here's the kicker of that, and talking with that homeowner as well. If we move that north, we still have when we lose a lot per se, because that power line, the reason we positioned the road where it was, was to change the contour during that power line crossing over it. So if we go north, then we lose that ability to have a lot to the left. We can't build right to the left of that road, if that makes sense. So by going north, we're losing more footage that,
You can't come south because of there's the waters.
if we went south a little bit, it would be fine, but then we got the road behind them the whole way. So that would be, I mean, we can do it however you guys tell us we have to do it, but from my standpoint, from dollars and cents, it makes the most sense to go south than it would north, I guess. And in talking with them guys, they're building a privacy fence, and permanent, or like a solid privacy fence. And we've made an agreement between us and the homeowner there to where before the road's blacktopped or upon completion of their fence, we're gonna put a guardrail in that corner for them. That way they're gonna have young kids and things, and they don't feel safe with the possibility of a car sliding off. And they said with that solid fence, they weren't as concerned with the lights at that point, because the lights would be shining into that fence rather than their windows. Up at the top of the hill, possibly. I mean, it could still, we'll just have to see the trajectory of that.
That kind of comes into the side of that home, if I'm not remembering correctly. Norm, are you familiar with what we're talking about here, the homeowner and the fence?
Yeah, and, you know, Kevin's been real good, and some of the homeowners out there about talking these things through, and that's what it's gonna take from homeowners, obviously. We talked about that. I knew they were talking about putting up a fence. The right-of-way was actually changed more onto, all on his property, which actually afforded the line of houses a bigger backyard. So, I mean, he's been good to work for. Depending on what the houses look like ahead of that road, Kevin, you might, I don't know what that's gonna look like coming straight in before you make the left-hand turn.
Right.
You wanna make sure you don't hit a house there either.
Right.
And, you know, hitting a house in the living room and hitting it in a bedroom was the problem here, but the fence fixes both of those, and the guardrail alleviates the problem of them worrying about a car sliding in their backyard. So, it sounds like to me, as long as we're in communication, as we go through that process, that these problems can be solved.
Sounds like.
I know when we were out there, we talked about some of the drainage issues, and Kevin's addressed some of those. And he's having the water stir with you, and I'd like to see what that comes back, just so we know kind of what he's facing, because there is, getting that water off that hill and into a ditch is gonna be a chore from that location, but it can be done.
A side note, Norm, we purchased lot 1, which of subdivision 1 recently, which is the one right across from the clubhouse of the golf course. And I've talked with Mr. Melton a little bit. There is a drainage issue along Mount Carmel now, the way it stands. There's the ditches on the front need to be redone. And I told him, I said, well, we're doing some of that work. I mean, both us having that and the new piece of ground as well, it kind of allows for something to be done all at one time to try to alleviate that issue. And I think now would be the time to do that as well, tie all this together with that drainage.
Right, and I'm aware of what you're talking about, because I did meet with Greg and Norm out there, and we discussed that issue as well. Sounds like you're being very compatible with the residents out there. Is there any public comment? Go ahead, sir.
You guys are talking about roads and they've already been put in. Why is there not an order to where if you know somebody is going to be putting in a housing addition in the county, and the property, the roads are gonna be turned over for the county to maintain later, if this is the case here, why doesn't the street department get involved in making sure these roads are put in before we start building?
That is a very good question, and it's a discussion that's came up many times. We do have a little bit of stipulation as far as driveway pipes, things like that. With the new development that's coming on, there's been discussion with the highway superintendent, with the county attorney, to push that to the next level, as you're saying. Norm, go ahead.
So, one of the things that, as we're writing the new comprehensive plan, one of the things that we've talked about is in our subdivision ordinance, we're going to address roads I think me and you talked about,
Concrete curbs,
yes, the whole 9
storm
yards.
sewers, all that
It's
stuff.
gonna be much better spelled out. I mean, we have to work off the document we have right now, but the new one will address all those issues so that we're not shooting in the dark.
Right.
You know, we'll have it laid out, 20 feet wide, I believe, and, how thick, do we want sidewalks, all that's gonna be addressed in the new plan.
Right. And you're right on by mentioning that, and I hate to say this, but we've talked about it before, we're 25 years behind times, and we're trying to get caught up in a short period of time. But that is on the table, it is in a discussion, and it will happen. In this particular situation, this development's already going before that plan was moved forward, but it will be addressed moving on to the new developments. So, any other comment or question? With that being said, do I hear a motion to approve the rezone from agricultural to residential?
I make that motion.
Have a motion by Bob, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Have a second by Dale, all in
I just
favor?
need to read this real quick.
Yep.
So this will be ordinance number 2022-011. This is an ordinance to amend Owen County zoning ordinance and subdivision control ordinance. Now therefore be ordained by the Board of Commissioners of Owen County, Section 1. The Owen County zoning and subdivision control ordinance is amended is hereby amended to rezone the following descriptive illustrated Washington Township of Owen County, Indiana. Attached to this ordinance is a 4-page technical description of the property, and it is available to be part of the ordinance. But it is more commonly known as the Mount Carmel Road in Spencer, Indiana, identifying parcel number 60-10-13-400-240.000-027. Section 2, the above descriptive real estate should be in the same as hereby rezoned from agricultural to residential single family. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect and after its adoption. If it's adopted today by the Board of Commissioners of Owen County in a regular meeting held on the 7th day of March of 2021. Meet on here to circle whether you are adopting it or denying it. There is a section for the vote. Either put yea or nay, and this will be by Gary Burton, President, Robert Curry, Vice President, Dale Du Bois, Commissioner, Sheila Reeves, Auditor. In addition to this, there would be then the findings of fact of signing on that document.
What was the ordinance number again, Jim?
It is 2022-011.
Thank you. All right, the motion had been made and had been seconded with the reading of the ordinance. All in favor? Aye. 3-0, Sheila. Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you.
That being said, public meeting is now closed.
Do we need just a motion on the findings of fact for the Plan Commission?
Oh, yeah, that's right, I'm sorry. And also, we need a motion of approval for the Plan Commission, findings of the Planning Commission. Do I hear a motion? Got a motion by Bob. Do I hear a second? I'll second it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
This one requires my signature, and the next one requires all three. Sheriff Department, you have anything for us, Sam?
I just got a couple things that, I'm sorry. Gary addressed the situation this morning. I received numerous phone calls about the jail project that is completely off the table. That is not accurate. Just Gary touched base on, we're back to the drawing board. We know that we can't spend $24 million. That's never been our intention to burden the taxpayers. I want to make sure the taxpayers understand that that's not the goal. The goal is to ease the liability on those structures that passed. Gary made it perfectly clear that Garmong is working on a project in 1 or 2 different ways. So the jail project is still on the table. I just want the public to know, I received a lot of phone calls, and I think some other people did too, that, well, now the $800,000 is off the table, the whole project's off the table. That's not the case. We're working on the project, we're just back at the drawing board. Don't know what that's gonna consist of, we don't even know if we can afford $15 million or not. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, I think is the plan, right, Eric?
That is correct.
As far as the commissioner is concerned, we had another gas leak. We are getting costs this week on to replace the whole gas line, inside the jail. It's gotta be done. We're also coming up, with, some maintenance items which we've done before. I know you've not had a maintenance person for quite some time, now you're getting one hard. We're gonna get you the composite list of things that need to be done. Some urgent things compared to things that you go hold off for a while. When it comes to the correctional facility money that Jim talked about for the public to understand, we have potentially not spent a great deal of that money, even though we could have, and Sergeant Ross can tell us about that if needed, but we're holding off on spending as much of that money as we can until we figure out what we're gonna do with the project in its entirety. If it comes back, we can do something with $15 million, praise God, we can use that money for something else. If not, then we may have to use that money to fix some of the major issues that we got going on at the facility. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but I just want to let the commissioners know, and I think Gary will bring that up this morning so the public knows that it's not off the table, it's just back to the drawing board. And we will have you as a composite list of stuff at your next meeting, so you just can take a look at that.
Sam, that's a really good point that you're making with the maintenance, and I'd suggest that with a new maintenance guy coming on here in a couple of weeks, that Sheila, we might want to address all the departments and put out a, hey, do you have a maintenance issue? We've been without a maintenance man for over 2 months now. So I'm sure that there's issues out there in different departments that need to be addressed. Not that I want to scare the new guy away, but we need to get a organized list of issues that need to be dealt with. So that is a good point, Sam.
And, Gary, back when I was doing the maintenance for the county, we had a little computer set up down there at the shop. And people, it was either critical that had to be done, a week or something like that, to come to me. That way I knew what was important and what was not.
Right. Thank you. All right. With that being said, we've already taken care of the assessor's contract. Chris is not here. 911 dispatch.
Gary, if you just don't leave me, I need to go, let's go.
No, Sam, I think we're good. Thank you.
Morning, afternoon, whichever. We're close to afternoon now. So I know John Parmalee was up there talking about our cybersecurity with our insurance and everything like that. I wanted to give you guys, I received an email from the state 911 board that IPSC, which is the Indiana Public Safety Commission, is taking a list of small to intermediate sized 911 centers and offering to come in and do a ransomware readiness assessment. And I submitted our dispatch center to attempt to participate in this. I do not know how many centers they're going to select, if it's just one, but it is going to be at no cost to the county at all. So we should get a report. There's a 48 questionnaire that I'm gonna have to fill out to see if we qualify for it as to what they're going to be looking at, and those kind of things. But I do know that ransomware is something that is very big within 911 centers. I've worked for a center that was hit by ransomware and everything was shut down. So I believe that if IPSC is gonna be able to provide us a report for free, then why not try to take advantage of it?
No, most definitely. And they're gonna just do an assessment of what we would need to do moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What we currently have in place, their suggestions of what we would need for additional security and so on and so forth. So, this week we have an extremely busy week at the dispatch center. So tonight we have a Boy Scout tour coming through. It's gonna visit the 911 center and then go over to the EMS facility. That's gonna be 12 to 16-year-olds. So we're not gonna have a bunch of little kids running around. It's gonna be some people we're gonna be able to show how some of our services work, for some older teens that will be able to understand kind of what goes on inside of a 911 center. Tomorrow, we have slotted the move of the CAD production server from the jail over to the new facility. Wednesday is when J&K is going to be down and they're gonna be doing our fire radio project. So they're gonna be constructing the new antenna down at Freedom, and then they're gonna be reprogramming the rest of the VHF repeaters throughout the county. So, if we have fire runs that come across certain areas of the county, if they're currently working on that repeater, they might not receive the verbal tone over the radio. However, almost all, I say almost all, because there's a couple departments that do not have a active 911 with us, to where they also receive a text message through their phones that is managed by the fire department. So if they don't get the verbal dispatch, they'll at least get notification through their phones. And we're not looking at long downtime at each of those repeaters. It's gonna be running some new cables, swapping out equipment that's already been programmed, pretty much just plugging in and getting it up and going. And then we'll be doing some testing. On Thursday, J&K will be back down. And that is when they will be working on the Sheriff 800 channel, our law channel, because we have some issues whenever we go into site trunking. That dispatch goes to one tower location, but law enforcement goes to a different tower location, so we're not able to talk to each other. So by them doing this work on Thursday, it should point us all to the same tower should the state system have something occur with its tower, to where we will still be able to talk to each other locally.
Got a busy week.
Very busy week. Friday, currently nothing slotted, but it's emergency services, so that always changes. But so we are looking at wrapping up 2 major projects this week. So that's currently where we sit with all of that.
So if all that goes smooth, then you got smooth sailing for a while.
Correct. Yep. I do not have any current projects slotted, even though I am looking at some stuff, because I always want to improve the 911 center. But we're not ready to move into another huge project quite yet. We're gonna breathe a little bit before we do something else.
I think we probably all need to do that a little bit.
Yeah. I have had another employee turn in their resignation. So she is going to be leaving us, and she's moving out of state. She's moving to Maine. So we wish her
That's out of our control, yeah.
Yep, out of our control. So that currently puts us 2 down. The timing of it actually works pretty well, because we had our employee that was active with the National Guard. He actually just came back on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, back to shift. So he has picked up and just kind of kept on moving as if he has not missed any time. So that helps fill that vacancy there, but it does put us 2 short. We know we will be losing another employee at the end of May, because she will be graduating nursing school. So I'm trying to get people slotted, so as I know these positions become vacant, we are able to pick somebody up quickly and just start their training and kind of keep on moving. So it doesn't mean that we are by any means going to be really replacing skill sets, because that doesn't happen quickly when we lose seasoned dispatchers. But we at least have people ready to go to start in the position, instead of having to take time to try to find people. Because trying to find people is extremely hard still. So it's just the nature of what is happening with the job force.
And I'm sure that that's a specialized line of work, like most things are. You can just grab somebody off the street and throw them in there, so.
Right, yeah, we can teach somebody how to do the job, but we're running the same things Sheriff's Department mentioned the other day, of getting people applying that are not qualified. They have criminal histories, that kind of stuff, and we just can't hire those people because of the severity of the things that we do, the confidentiality, the records that we have access to. So that's a little bit of one of the issues that we're falling into, and I know the Sheriff's Department's having that same issue, because Matt spoke about it. They received 3 applications and had to toss 2 due to criminal histories, and same thing's happening with us.
Yeah, it's a problem in every department.
Yep.
All right.
So I believe that is it. As I emailed you, I'm gonna be going on vacation the 22nd, so my plan is, I will be here Monday the 21st to submit payroll and everything. But unless necessary, I will not be at the meeting that night because I'll have to be at the airport at 4 in the morning, so.
Unless something major changes between now and then, have a good time.
Yeah, and I have slotted people to kind of cover my stuff. If it's anything technical, chief deputy is gonna take care of it. If it's anything with staffing, filling shifts, those kind of things, Alan McBride will be the contact for it. So I do have, and then I will have my phone, but it's not going to be on me the whole time. It will stay in the room, but it will be checked from time to time. So if there's anything major, I will be aware that it's occurred, so, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right,
Have a good day.
you too.
Highway. And Greg, we got on here highway bids, but that's not the case, as you're aware. We've got bids out for bridges, waiting on those to come back. Should be our next meeting.
Correct.
One thing we also talked about, so you guys are aware, we did approve the ARPA plan for the $1.6 million. That has to go before the council, before it can be, we can move forward on any bid process. Once they hopefully, approve that, then we can get busy. With that being said, Greg, I'll be quiet and it's your turn.
Okay, Jim, I do believe we may have some proposals back from record companies, is that correct?
No, those, the 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, so far, the 21st for record proposals and 21 for Rocky Ridge.
Okay. Commissioners, I haven't been back in front of you for any length of time since the storm in February, 2nd through the 5th. You'll see your packets, but I'll run down through this real quick. In salt sand mix during that storm event, we spent $32,163.45. Out of stockpile stone, $448. Stone from the quarries, we spent $104.91. In off-road fuel, we pumped 724 gallons and spent $1,844.59. In unleaded fuel, we pumped 71.5 gallon and $228.73. In DEF fluid, we spent $6.90. Excuse me, the $228.73 was in unleaded fuel. In overtime, we spent $12,735.78 for a grand total for that storm event of $47,868.26.
Well, that's a lot better than I thought.
Yes, those are exact figures. I think we did a little better than expected. Unfortunately, gentlemen, I have to report to you this morning was another storm event. We have a lot of things going on in the county. When I walked into the meeting, I had 5 roads closed. I expect that to grow throughout the day. It is flash flood water, so it will go down as quick as it comes up. But there are several issues in regards to the culverts that I've reported many times over.
How are we doing on pipes, Greg? Do you have what you need on hand to deal with some of this?
We actually have a semi-load of culvert pipe on the lot, so we can make repairs.
Okay.
Not extensive, but some. And then we do have a large pipe on the lot. That is a replacement for a pipe on Otterman Church, but if we would have something go wrong, it is there and we could use it. We've had to do that many times in the past. So, that is.
Seems like every time it rains.
Yes. Jim, did we have the RFP for the bridge inventory here prepared to be signed?
No.
No, well then I'll have to have that done in the next meeting, but we've got to get this done. It's been, I had it in the last commissioners meeting.
Oh, wait, maybe I'm not, I misunderstood what I said. You want to get the scoring?
Yeah, I need.
No, I thought you were talking about a new proposal.
No, it's not a new proposal. I just need the commissioners to approve that so we can get it in compliance. I have a representative from United Consulting here now.
So Commissioner, we need to kind of step back on this bit. There was Greg, I may use the wrong terminology, there was a request for the bridges for an inspection, but what NDOT required is the actual proposals went out. All this took place. Everything was advertised, everything was done in a public meeting, there was no question about that at all. But then what had happened was found out, and I believe this was definitely was a new procedure for anyone at the highway, that United Consulting was the only firm that actually sent a proposal. They were not the only ones asked to do it. The others notified, and I believe is that correct? In writing, and those were presented in an open meeting. The other two parties said that they were not interested. So therefore, an evaluation was done in an open meeting for the proposal, and it was granted to United Consulting. So you did the full evaluation, but there needed to be on this one piece of paper, I believe right here, a score on it that you needed to document. So they did all of this, but what they need now for INOT is the actual scoring of here. So the scoring, was only by one, so you can give it whatever score. But this is the document that is needed. It does need a reviewer and a signature on here. So this is the page here. So you're just scoring the document that you already did in a public meeting. They met all of the requirements, but then this was now being requested.
Obviously, there's some questions here. We've got phase 1, phase 2, phase 1A. How do we answer some of these? It says check all that apply. Do all those apply?
Apply.
Okay.
It's based on how your ratings of each one of those bridges are over time. Some inspections are required to happen every year. Some are every 2 years, some are every 4 years. It's just part of the process.
Okay.
Based on the condition of some of those bridges as well. You know, if it's had critical failures or critical points along the way, then they require it to be inspected each year.
Okay. Just want to make sure we fill it out properly for you.
Yeah.
I remember the meeting when you were the only one, and then the other companies refused not to do that. So.
And it requires one signature, doesn't it?
It does.
Go for it, Gary.
Why did I know you were going to say that?
You'd be on the highway all the time.
I will take care of this before we leave the meeting.
This might be helpful. This is a helpful scoring 1, 2.
Okay.
In here.
All right. Well, I guess I better get a motion for myself to fill this out and sign it. Do I hear that motion?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second? Have a motion by Bob, second by Dale. All in favor? Aye. So I will take care of that before we leave this meeting.
Okay, Commissioners, I need to report the Highway Department also had a gas leak. Late last week, community gas was out, and then we had to have a repair service come in. Levy Heating and Cooling was the only one we could get to come in and repair it immediately. In their opinion, all the gas lines need replaced at the Highway Department. Now, they're not significant, but they need replaced, so I will have that list for the new maintenance man.
Well, for the garage part, if we get the furnace up and running, that'll maybe eliminate a big emergency there. As long as we take care of the office side, we can cut that off for the time being until we can regroup or whatever, but, okay.
Okay, commissioners, I had a new one presented this week, and I'm going to ask just your permission to work with Jim on this. I'll be informing you today of this for the first time, because I have several issues in the next meeting to bring before you in regard to vacating roads. This request comes from Mr. Jim Ward, Davis Drive. He wants 1,092 feet of the road reopened. The road has never officially been closed. At some point in time, we quit maintaining the road, and we never vacated that road. The road actually begins over on 246 near Marion and ends on Denmark Road. It's obvious to me the reason that we probably quit maintaining the road is there's a bridge on the 246 end that is out. We didn't repair the bridge. That's mostly through farm country, therefore it wasn't maintained. I never remember that road being open. My family is from Denmark Road, and I can't ever remember it being open all the way through, even since a small child. Does it make sense to reopen the road from the 246 end? Because if we do, we're gonna have to replace a bridge. But the 1,092 feet from the Davis Road end makes sense to me. I think we need to work out the logistics, but I need to get with Jim and bring that before you in the next commissioners meeting.
Is there a reason for that?
The
At this
reason,
time, yeah.
exactly, and I think we're gonna run into this all over the county because we've not vacated roads, we just quit maintaining them.
Right.
The property was sold.
Okay, so they need access to it.
He needs access to
Sure.
the property.
Okay.
Well, they're still getting paid so much a mile when you didn't maintain them. I mean, you turn them in, that's the way we get our money.
This road has not been turned in regard to mileage, except where it dead ends right now, but we never vacated the road, so if we reopen this 1,092 feet, then that would be added
To our inventory, yeah. Well, we're gonna have to move forward on that for sure, especially since the property's been sold, they need access to it, so.
Yes.
Am I gonna assume that we've got trees growing up through it and all kinds of?
Actually, it's not horrible. I've been out to look at it.
Are we gonna need to rent a bulldozer?
Yeah, we'll probably have to rent a bulldozer just to get the road bed down to where it is, or have somebody come in and open that 1,092 feet up. Because we need to get the road bed cleared back off. It appears to be solid, but still we've had 30, 40 years of no gravel or anything on it. I think probably the only reason it's open because it doesn't have trees growing through it is because people have used it to go through
farm fields, whatever,
et cetera.
So, thought process, do we want to have you put a quote together for renting equipment if needed, and our labor force versus outside source, do some comparison and see which is the best way to go?
Jim, where do I stand on this project? I mean,
Well, you could clearly do it in-house, it will be under $150,000 or.
oh yeah,
Okay,
yes.
so that would fit, you would just have to come in and to state that you obviously qualified, your crew is qualified, we just have to go through those technicalities on it. If you're wanting just to rent equipment, you can go ahead and get those quotes and ready. But if the road was never vacated, there's nothing to be done in that regard. I mean, if it's a county road.
It is.
It just wasn't, I guess is the best way to say it, it just ceased to be maintained. Now we're going to maintain it, so that there'd be nothing to change as far as the street itself. It just went X amount of years without maintenance.
Well, I will put some quotes together and present that to you. I mean, Commissioner DuBois can tell you in regard to dozer work, anything there could be done probably in a half a day, but that would be the best.
Is that the one that's got a bridge on the creek?
Yes.
They ain't been open since I was born.
There's our answer, how that's.
So how long is that, Dale, 82 years?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would get vendors or somebody just to throw you a quote together on it, compare in-house price, at least some kind of an estimate.
Okay, lastly, commissioners, it's your pleasure, we got quotes on a small roller, to follow our hot box around. I did rent a small roller last week when the, asphalt plant opened for 2 days to take care of Monroe County, on an issue that they had, so we worked, diligently to patch holes and use the roller, to vibrate the holes in, and it worked very well. So that being said, I did get quotes. Jim has those. Those quotes came in via email and were sealed and placed in an envelope. Now, commissioners, if you approve this today, I am requesting that you not make any purchase or make an agreement with the company that we do agree to purchase from. We not make any payments till after my April installments.
Is this something that would fit in line in your equipment budget in general? I know that you're on a cash basis, don't want to strap the county by no means.
It actually is, and due to the circumstances throughout the county, I hadn't had any plans to buy any equipment. The more money I could keep in the coffers, we could put on the roads later in the year, but we've all found, I think Commissioner Burton may have driven some, I don't know if Commissioner Curry or Du Bois did, but this really has improved the whole patching process. I think it is warranted. Rental is how much a week?
$750.
Rental's $750 a week, so, for one of these costs, I believe that purchasing one would end up being the best thing to do.
Well, we've talked time and time again about hole patching, and with not using this process, we turn into a washboard effect. We just patch over patch over patch, and we don't have a drivable surface at some point. And this eliminates that. Plus it compacts that cold mix or hot mix, whatever you're using, into that hole properly instead of throwing it in there and patting it down with a shovel. So,
we tried both processes with hot mix and cold mix, and it works very well with both.
Well, as long as it doesn't hurt your budget, equipment wise, I don't have a problem with it.
Commissioner, so these would be a quoting, so Greg, all three of these companies, they deal in this type of line of services or products, is that correct?
They do.
Okay, so this would be obtaining quotes that would exceed 10,000 but do not exceed 150,000. The ordinance that allows this is 2019-0031, and it does allow by Indiana statute the request by email as long as they're brought and you make a decision here. So they're identified by McAllister, Southeastern, and Silmaster. So McAllister. McAllister has made a quote here. They identified it as a BOMAG, BOMAG, BW900. Their quote total amount is $17,950. They just duplicated it, but it's the same quote, and that's it, it's in entirety. So
McAllister gave us two quotes on two different machines.
Is it the same equipment?
It is, it's a different brand.
Okay, all right. So you have the BOMAG BW900, $17,950. Second quote for the same type, a Racker RD12A roller with solid wraps, $17,500. So one is $17,950, one is $17,500. So two quotes from McAllister. This is from Southeastern. They have a 2021 BOMAG, B-O-M-A-G, BW 900-50. Then it has the serial number, and their total price is $18,500. Same thing on the back, there's no there's no difference, or there's no travel. So the amount of Southeastern is $18,500. Sealmaster. Sealmaster, as they have identified it as a 1157 36 double drum roller, and their price is $22,000. They have a delivery charge of $225, so their total price is $22,225. And then it just has the particulars as far as standard contract language, but nothing more on the equipment. So I have a total of 4 quotes from 3 different departments. Looks like the lowest one, the amount is of $17,500, and that's from McAllister. So there's the 4.
Well, I was wondering, them roller bids, why are we, taking bids on something that cheap? I mean, that price. I know every one of them, they give you a price on. If you went there, said, we'll write you a check for that, you'll take off $2,000 or $3,000.
Well, the commissioners, back in 21, require us now anything over, I believe, $500.
5,000.
Excuse me, 5,000.
It was 10,000.
10,000, 5,000, I must come before the board and make the request. And I have a policy.
County got in financial trouble, we had to curb.
But could we make a motion?
But the problem.
Allow them to spend X amount of dollars maximum?
$5,000 is what it is. There's already.
That's all we do now.
Yep, it's all we
Anything
do.
over that, we pay it.
It has to come before us.
Even though you know you're screwed.
He doesn't have the funds to go write him a check anyway, and that's what he just said. He'd have to wait till April before.
My
he could
April
do it.
deposit.
Right. So that restricts us a little bit as well.
Then in regard to the $500, I mean, I notify Commissioner Burton now if I've gotta spend more than $500.
5,000.
Yeah, but I do tell you if it's $500.
Yeah. No, we.
I understand the 5,000, but if I'm spending over $500 on something in that shop, I let him know.
I got a question for you. We got 2 quotes on a BOMAG. It's $450 more than the Riker or whatever. I'm not familiar with the Riker brand.
I'm not either. The Sealmaster machine is actually a Riker also. Jim, I don't know the position, but the highway department has other BOMAG equipment, which operates very well. If we can go with the 17,950, I would prefer the BOMAG, but if not, I'm fine.
It's $450 more than the lower quote, but it's not a familiar piece of equipment.
Right, but this is very, the quoter is quoting against himself on the 2 lowest.
Right.
So, I guess the question I have on, what were the other 2 quotes, the actual equipment for?
They're basically the same roller. McAllister and Southeastern both handle the BOMAG. I needed a 3rd quote. The 3rd quote was from Sealmaster. They only handle the Riker. McAllister also handled the Riker. So
I see.
They gave us a quote on those, Whacker or whatever it is.
Well, I mean, on that basis, if you are choosing something that is not the lowest one, there's a requirement to articulate the reason why. Is something more compatible? Do you have other parts for that? And do you have training and experience of your operators that would make that an easier piece of equipment to use? But you would need to state the reason why specifically and justify not choosing the very lowest one.
Well, the only reason that, and I'm fine with the other, if that's what we must do, but we have BOMAG equipment. We have little issue with it.
And we probably have a parts chain that we can deal with if need be. That's for $450, I think that overweighs the different brand, one that none of us here in this room are familiar with. Have you ever heard of Whacker roller?
Just a little bit of hammers.
Yeah. So since we already have that equipment, I personally think that we can make that decision. You want to take another look at them, Mayor Bob? See this one out at 17.9, and then this Whacker that you're talking about nope, that's not the right one. It's in between there.
Oh, it goes
There.
17.9, I believe.
Already familiar with the equipment and have parts chain for it.
And you get parts for it.
This is the one that's familiar with.
Right. $450 more than that other brand. McAllister's a company that the highway department deals with on a daily, definitely a weekly basis for parts, warranty, repair, whatever it might be.
Both of these units same size, or you know?
They are the same size.
Same size. If you're more familiar with it, I don't see a problem go with the additional $450.
Well, then I
can afford it.
Ask for a motion for approval of the BOMAG BW 900 at a price of $17,950. It is $450 more than the Whacker brand, but the highway department is familiar with the BOMAG, as well as parts, labor, etc., factored into that decision. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I got a motion by Dale. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Bob. This will be with the determination of not being billed or until after the April installment to the highway.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have nothing further, gentlemen. We'll have a busy week, our next commissioners meeting, but
Obviously, you've got a council meeting next Monday night. You want to present your road plan, of course. There's those, she'll probably need a copy of that one at some point.
oh, don't you? I've got other copies.
Yeah, don't run off. Yeah, we'll get this thing knocked out. Okay, health department bids. Jim, we don't want to put that on here. We don't.
I don't have it.
I was gonna say, we're not ready. I didn't think so. Bill, you have something?
No.
Okay. AECom landfill proposal.
Yeah, Commissioners, I did look that over. AECom is the professional company that has been used for several years as far as the post-monitoring of the landfill. This is required by law. I mean, there's without going to the entire statute, this has to be monitored. Specifically, you're looking at areas for groundwater monitoring, methane monitoring, and then the landfill itself. And so some are quarterly, some are semi-annually, but all three have to be done. They have proposed a new contract. The contract estimate is for $38,000. The Owen County Council has already appropriated $40,000 for this service, so it's $2,000 under the appropriation. It is under the county commissioner's budget and a specific line item. but this is a company that you have used for years. They, in essence, do all the testing, then they follow up with IDEM, and they, with John Reeves in the health department, and do the report. So the reality is that they take it over, they essentially do everything, and you don't have to use ACOM, I'm not suggesting that, but you would need someone else. This is not an option of not doing this.
And I think that was even looked at one time, and the people that was looked at were not qualified to do landfills, if I'm not mistaken. We talked about that a couple of years ago.
It had been looked at as far as looking at proposals. I would say that anything presented to you was unsatisfactory, that is far in multiple ways. But ACOM, to the best of my knowledge, in the past 3 years, has responded to anything that the county wanted. Again, you do not have to pick them. It is under the appropriation. If you do not, though, it would require immediately finding someone else, because these tests have to take place.
Correct. With that being said, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the AECOM landfill proposal. The company that's been involved since I've been here, and I'm sure long before that. So do I hear that motion?
I'll make it.
I have a motion by Dale. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Bob. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And I think it is correct. It's a couple $1,000s cheaper than it has been in the past, which is surprising. All right. You also have a update on an ordinance for the health department for a tattoo.
I do. The commissioners agreed this. This is a very long one, but I'll go over the sections. This is required by law for any county where businesses come in for the operation of tattoo, piercing, or body modification businesses. The Owen County Health Department received a application for a permit and recognized that they did not have an ordinance. So this is ordinance number 2022-0012. Whereas the stated an ordinance establishing the policies and procedures for the operation of the tattoo, piercing, and body modification businesses in Owen County, Indiana. Whereas the state of Indiana has amended the laws concerning tattoos and tattoo parlors. Whereas local governments may adopt ordinances to protect the health and welfare of the citizens. Whereas tattooing, piercing, and body modification, hereafter described as body art, procedures are becoming more and more common among residents of the state of Indiana and residents of Owen County. Whereas the safe and proper operation of a body art business is in the best interest of the residents of Owen County. Whereas an improperly operated or improperly sanitized body art could have serious detrimental effects upon citizens of Owen County. Whereas there exists a very real distinct possibility of transmission of serious infectious disease in body art procedures if that body art business and artist are not skilled.
It wants an email billing address. I'll let you fill all that part out.
Whereas Owen County Commission has the power to protect the health and safety of the citizens. Whereas the Owen County Health Department can best inspect and provide the necessary training and expertise to oversee the body art businesses. Whereas Owen County Commissioners believe that body art businesses should be subject to reasonable inspections of the Owen County Health Department. And whereas the Owen County Commissioners desire to adopt an ordinance to regulate the body art business, now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Commissioners of Owen County, Indiana, Section 1, that there will be a sanitary operation of tattoo parlors. Section 2, definitions. So all the definitions in this ordinance are defined for compliance with Indiana 410 IC 1 through 5, and they apply through A through T. So it starts in your definition section from artist defined to T, tongue splitting. Section 3, general requirements. No person may do any of the following. You may not operate a tattoo, or body piercing, or body modification services unless the Owen County Health Department has issued a permit. Then you may not perform any modification that does not meet the requirements of this ordinance. Section 4 is the minimum standards of physical facilities. These requirements are in compliance with 410, 1AC 1 through 5. There has to be services, there has to be a certain amount of lighting, and restroom facilities, sinks, and equipment. Section 5, the operator and artist responsibilities. All artists and operators must comply with all requirements of 4110, IEC 1 through 5, and 29. CFR 1910.130. There must be records maintained for 2 years, and there are very specific written verbal instructions if someone is under the age of 18 to request such a service. Section 6 is additional requirements for mobile units. If a place uses a mobile establishment, they must comply with all rules. 410 IHC 1 through 5. There are a number of prohibited acts. These are strictly prohibited. You cannot tongue splitting, tattoo removal, branding, implementing suspension, or scarification. Those are prohibited. There are exceptions. The exception particularly is about earlobe piercing or medical procedures by state licensed medical practitioners are exempt from this ordinance. You must obtain a permit under Section 9. Section 10 is the application for the permit. The cost of the permit is $150. And Section 10 explains the application and plan review. Section 12 is for inspections. The Owen County will inspect these locations at least once every 6 months, and they will be in accordance to IC 1620.16. There are fines for any failure. That's Section 14. There's Section 13 is the closure of the Owen County Health Department has the authority to close tattoo or body piercing facilities that do not comply with this ordinance. 14 is fines, and 15 is a section of enforcement. Number 16 is appeals. If anyone wishes to appeal any decision of the Health Department, it describes that procedure. This will be effective if passed by today's date. Since there is a permit fine, it does require 2 publications of this ordinance. If so adopted, this will be passed and adopted by the Board of Commissioners of Owen County, State of Indiana, at a regular meeting held on the 8th 2022. Owen County Board of Commissioners, Gary Burke, President, Robert Craig, Vice President, Del Du Bois, Commissioner, and attested by Sheila Reeves, Auditor. A full and complete document is available for public inspection and copy at the Auditor's Office, the Health Department, and will be published twice.
Thank you, Jim, and that was
That's
1, 2, 12, that's what I thought, okay. Do I hear a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-012, an ordinance establishing a policy and procedures for operation of a tattoo, piercing, and body modification business in Owen County?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Bob, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Dale, all in favor? Aye. Pass 3-0. Either, Sheila, do you have anything? Jim?
One just quick thing, just a reminder, the executive order for the public health declaration was terminated by the governor. So that whole series of basically 2 years of executive orders have been rescinded. Just want to bring that to the attention. I think Owen County's already rescinded all of its areas. I mean, as far as, requirements of wearing a mask or anything. I do notice that there is still the temperature monitor. I'm not suggesting in any way you remove it or not remove it, but I am just saying that the executive orders for the public health declaration have been rescinded.
And good point, Jim, that has been a discussion. Bob and I had that discussion briefly, and I think we're in agreement that we remove the temperature monitors at this point. The state has rescinded all health concerns with the pandemic, and we will follow suit. It's one less thing that security guards have to deal with down front. So with that being said, I'll make a motion that we remove all of the temperature monitors throughout the county government offices.
I'll second.
Got a second by Bob. Motion by myself, all in favor? Aye. 3-0. Gentlemen, you have anything?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll take that motion. One thing, I'm gonna go ahead and contact Leonard Williams and let him know, and then get his 2-week notice, and then Bob, you and I can get with him once he comes on board. But with that being said, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.